I think more shock and dauntingness was more the feeling I felt. But it was, the thing is, it's...
The moment that lasted less than 3 minutes did something no royal announcement in decades had dared to do. It exposed a transition already in motion, already negotiated, already forced into existence before the public even realized it had begun. Standing side by side, Prince William and Catherine didn't just confirm a date, they confirmed a shift in power that had been quietly building behind closed doors. June 2nd, 2027. Westminster Abbey. A date that should have symbolized continuity instead felt like a line drawn under something unfinished, something unresolved. William's voice stayed steady, controlled, almost rehearsed, but Catherine's trembling breath betrayed the truth. This wasn't just duty. This was pressure. This was consequence. This was a future arriving faster than anyone had planned. And then came the detail that changed everything. June 2nd wasn't random. It fell exactly 74 years after Queen Elizabeth's coronation. That wasn't tribute. That was alignment. That was positioning. That was a deliberate attempt to anchor a new reign to the authority of the past while quietly bypassing the present. Because this wasn't supposed to happen like this. Not while King Charles was still alive. Not while he could still hear the bells that would now announce someone else as monarch. That's where the story fractures. Because a coronation is supposed to follow loss. But this one followed a decision. And decisions create blame. Behind that announcement, 4 figures stood at the center of a silent power shift, William gaining authority faster than expected. Catherine preparing to step into a role that would consume her private life. Charles surrendering control while still fully aware of what he was losing. And Camilla watching her influence narrow with every passing moment. And none of them were aligned. Not fully. Not honestly. Because what the public saw as unity was built on negotiation, resistance, and one major conflict that forced the date itself to change. That conflict left a physical mark. Inside a sealed coronation file at Clarence House, Charles opened the official document governing the ceremony and saw it one date crossed out in black ink, replaced by another handwritten beneath it. June 2nd had not been the original plan. It had been demanded. And that demand came from William. Not publicly, not dramatically, but firmly enough to override months of preparation. That's where the control shifted. Quietly, irreversibly, because William had received something Charles could not ignore, a confidential security and health assessment that changed the timeline completely. Suddenly, delay wasn't caution. It was risk. And William didn't ask. He pushed. That push created the first fracture between father and son. A fracture hidden behind composed statements and rehearsed appearances, but real enough to reshape the future of the monarchy. And the first visible crack didn't happen in a meeting. It happened in a moment no one was supposed to notice. St. George's Chapel, a private service, a ceremonial movement that required precision, timing, and control. Charles reached his position and stopped. Not dramatically, not visibly to the public, but long enough for silence to spread, long enough for confusion to ripple through the room. And then William stepped forward. Not invited, not instructed. He whispered the correction and completed the sequence. 12 seconds. That's all it took. 12 seconds for every senior royal present to understand something no announcement had yet confirmed: the crown was already shifting. Not officially, but practically. Charles didn't react in public. But behind closed doors, inside the vestry, the confrontation came fast. Controlled voice. Direct accusation. William was too ready, too prepared, too willing to take control. And William didn't deny it. He answered with one word that cut deeper than anything else he said. Charles looked frightened. That word didn't just describe a moment. It exposed a truth Charles wasn't ready to accept. Because fear doesn't belong in monarchy. Control does. And from that moment, everything accelerated. Catherine found William afterward, still holding his ceremonial gloves so tightly they had creased in his palm. He admitted something no future king is supposed to say, that helping his father had felt like betrayal. Not because it was wrong, but because it felt like replacing him too soon. That contradiction became the emotional core of the entire transition. Duty demanded action. Loyalty demanded restraint. and there was no way to satisfy both. Princess Anne saw the situation differently and more dangerously. During a recorded private consultation, she warned Charles directly. This wasn't humiliation. This was warning. A controlled transition could protect his dignity. A sudden collapse would destroy it. That's when Charles made the decision that changed everything. He ordered two plans: a regency temporary transfer of power, and abdication permanent surrender of the throne. That second option wasn't symbolic, it was real. And once it existed on paper, it became a possibility William could push toward. The original coronation date, autumn 2027, was no longer acceptable to William. Not after the assessment, not after the chapel incident, not after the silent confirmation that the system was already straining. And so the date moved forward. But Charles didn't agree without resistance. He placed a condition that would trigger the most intense confrontation yet. Because buried inside the coronation order of service was one specific one symbolic act that would define the entire transition: the outgoing sovereign kneeling before the new king. A public pledge of loyalty. A visual confirmation that power had fully transferred. Charles crossed it out. William insisted it stay. And suddenly, this wasn't about ceremony anymore. It was about identity. About legacy. About whether a reigning monarch could be seen submitting to his own son in front of the world. Charles called it humiliation. William called it necessity. Because without that moment, speculation would explode. Questions would spread. Was the transition forced? Was Charles resisting? Was the crown truly secure? That single gesture held the power to end doubt or create it. And neither man was willing to give in. The room was cleared. No advisors, no witnesses, just father and son, sitting across from each other with the document between them like a line neither could cross without consequence. Charles refused to kneel. William refused to remove the pledge. And the longer the silence stretched, the more dangerous the situation became. Because this wasn't just disagreement anymore. This was a test of who truly controlled the future of the monarchy. And outside that room, something even more unsettling had already begun. Someone inside the household had started making changes to the coronation program without authorization, which meant the conflict wasn't contained. It was spreading. And someone else was trying to influence the outcome. The moment that compromise was reached between Charles and William should have ended the crisis, but it didn't. It exposed something far more dangerous. Because while father and son were locked in a battle over a single symbolic gesture, someone else had already moved ahead without permission, quietly reshaping the coronation from inside the system itself. And when the source of that interference surfaced, it didn't come from an outsider, a rival faction, or a rogue advisor. It came from within the family. Camilla, not loudly, not publicly, but deliberately, through the Lord Chamberlain's office, the department responsible for controlling every ceremonial detail. A formal request had already been sent. It wasn't framed as a challenge, it was framed as protection. But its effect was unmistakable. It attempted to expand Charles's role beyond what had been agreed, reposition his presence within Westminster Abbey, and most critically, adjust the sequence of the procession so that he and Camilla would enter before William and Catherine. That wasn't a small change. That was hierarchy. That was influence attempting to survive transition. And Catherine saw it first. Not in a confrontation. Not in a meeting, but in a document. A revised procession schedule placed quietly among official papers. Her arrival had been moved. No explanation. No discussion. Just a shift small enough to pass unnoticed publicly, but significant enough to alter the entire visual narrative of the coronation. She didn't react immediately. That was the calculation. Because reacting too quickly would expose the conflict. Waiting would reveal intent. So she closed the folder and chose conversation over escalation. When Catherine met Camilla privately, there was no denial, no attempt to hide what had been done. Camilla defended the request with calm precision. She wasn't trying to disrupt the coronation. She was trying to protect Charles's dignity. That was the argument. But Catherine didn't challenge the reasoning. She challenged the consequence. Because in a coronation, perception becomes reality. And if Charles appeared too central, too prominent, too present, it would blur the transfer of power. It would create doubt. It would suggest hesitation. And hesitation in monarchy becomes instability. That's when the conversation shifted. Catherine asked one question that broke the entire defense apart. What are you really afraid of? And Camilla answered, not politically. Personally, she admitted what no one else had said aloud, that once Catherine was crowned, her own role would collapse overnight. That years of building acceptance, influence, and position would reduce instantly to something ceremonial, distant, almost irrelevant. It wasn't control she was fighting for. It was existence. And for a moment, the entire power struggle became human. But Catherine didn't yield. Because fear, no matter how justified, could not be allowed to rewrite a constitutional moment. That's when Anne stepped in. Direct, immediate, final, she ordered every unauthorized change removed, every altered document restored, every informal channel cut off. Her message wasn't emotional. It was strategic. Any visible inconsistency would damage both reigns. Not just William's future, Charles's legacy. And when Charles saw what had been attempted, his reaction wasn't relief. It was anger. Not because Camilla wanted to protect him, but because her actions made him look unwilling to let go. That's the contradiction that defined his final days as king. Every effort to preserve dignity risked undermining it. And when he confronted her, the conversation didn't revolve around power. It revolved around perception. He understood something she hadn't fully accepted yet, that the success of the transition depended entirely on one thing: his willingness to disappear at the right moment. Not physically, symbolically, because if he stayed too visible, too influential, too present, the crown would look divided. And division is fatal. So he did something unexpected. He removed his signet ring, not as a dramatic gesture, but as a message. Authority, he was saying, isn't held by symbols. It's validated by trust. And trust was now fragile. Camilla left that room without argument, not defeated, but changed. Because for the first time, she understood that influence wasn't something she could negotiate anymore. It was something she had already begun to lose. But the consequences didn't stop there. William's reaction, once informed, was immediate and uncompromising. He wanted her removed from all remaining planning. That instinct revealed something dangerous about the incoming reign. Control was becoming sharper, less forgiving, more decisive. Catherine stopped him, because she understood something he didn't yet fully grasp. Starting a reign by punishing internal conflict doesn't eliminate division. It amplifies it. So instead of exclusion, she chose containment. She met Charles again, not to argue, to stabilize. And in that conversation, Charles admitted the truth he had been avoiding. Watching William prepare wasn't just difficult. It felt like witnessing his own life being archived while he was still living it. That's the psychological cost no document ever records. Catherine reframed it. History, she told him, wouldn't judge how long he held power. It would judge how he released it. That shifted everything. Because suddenly, abdication wasn't loss. It was control over the narrative. And when that realization settled, the final step became inevitable. The abdication document, the legal instrument that would end Charles's reign, was no longer a threat sitting unsigned on a desk. It became a decision waiting to be made. William found it first. Unsigned, untouched, heavy, with consequence. And for a moment, the future king stood alone in front of it, not as a leader, not as an heir, but as a son facing the reality that once that pen moved, nothing could be undone. That's when Catherine brought the one thing no one else had used yet: the late Queen's letter. Someone inside the system had tried to alter the outcome once. And failure doesn't always stop intention. Sometimes it just forces it to become quieter and far more difficult to detect.